نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم رسوله النبي الأمين المكين الحنين الكريم الرؤوف الرحيم. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال الله تعالى في شأن حبيبه إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما تحب وترضى بأن تصلي عليه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإذ جعلنا البيت مثابة للناس وأمنا. وقال تعالى إن أول بيت وضع للناس للذي ببكة مباركا وهدى للعالمين فيه آيات بينات مقام إبراهيم ومن دخله كان آمنا. صدق الله العظيم وبلغنا رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك لمن الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Most respected ulama, my respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Bishops from throughout the world are currently in Rome, busy preparing for the conclave for the election of the new Pope after Pope Benedict XVI resigned. And I had discussed the issue of leadership in the Muslim world, and as promised, I'm going to discuss the proposed possible future of the sacred Muslim territories today in view of what's going on in the center of the Roman Catholic world, which is Rome or Vatican City. So I'm going to use some of the examples from the Vatican and from the Holy See as some options that we may have for the proposed future for the sacred territories. We are all aware that the center of the Roman Catholic world is in Italy, in Rome, in a separate independent state called the Vatican State. But what many of us may not be aware is that you have the Vatican State, which is about plus minus 44 hectares in size, 110 acres in size. But within the Vatican is the most important instrument of the Roman Catholic Church, which is known as the Holy See. In fact, the Vatican State is the capital of the Holy See and not the other way around, right? What's the distinction? The Vatican State is a separate entity, diplomatic international entity, and the Holy See is also a separate international diplomatic entity. The thing that unites the two together is that whether it's the organ of the Vatican State or whether it's the Holy See, the Pope, the ruling bishop of Rome, is the de facto leader of the Vatican State as well as the Holy See. What's the distinction between the two? The distinction between the two, according to the British and the American foreign embassies or foreign relations, is that the Holy See and the Vatican are two separate entities. The Holy See, S-E-E means the seat. The Holy See operates from Vatican City, operates from there. But the Holy See is the universal government of the Roman Catholic Church. Okay, so the Vatican has a political function, and the Holy See has more of a spiritual and pastoral function. But both are headed by one leader, and that is the Pope or the Pope incumbent. Understand this, because it's very crucial to our discussion today. Now, if we look at this entity, you will see that Vatican State was only established in 1929, after the First World War, after the end of the Khilafat as we know it in 1924. The Vatican State was established as a separate independent state. It's the world's smallest state. It only has 800 people. And the Holy See is also a separate diplomatic and international state. But because they are connected to each other because of the Pope, right, they are almost regarded as one and the same, yet they have different functions altogether. Now, when we look at the proposed future for the sacred territories of Islam, if you were to ask what's the equivalent of the Vatican State for the Muslim world? If the Roman Catholics are 1.2 billion in the world, we Muslims are pretty much similar, right? What is the Vatican State for the Muslim world? Well, Islam doesn't have one, Islam has three. Masjid al-Haram in Mecca, Masjid al-Nabawi in Al-Madinatul Munawwara, and Al-Quds, Masjid al-Aqsa, Ardul Muqaddasa. So you have Makkatul Mukarrama, you have Al-Madinatul Munawwara, and you have Ardul Muqaddasa, the city of Jerusalem. These are the three sacred territories for the Muslim world. These are the three sacred territories for the Muslim world. These are the three sacred cities for the Muslim world. Why I'm making the distinction? Because the territory, Haram, is part and parcel of Makkatul Mukarrama, but it has its own sacredness about it. It has its own separate function. Therefore, I said it's a sacred territory and a sacred city. And the Holy Quran speaks about the primordial importance of Makkatul Mukarrama in various verses of the Holy Quran. I don't want to discuss the fadail of Makkah and Medina. I want to bring to you more of a political perspective to the proposed future. This is not the future, but the proposed future for the sacred territories. Now, if you look at the Holy See, where the Pope administers the issues and the issues of governance of the Roman Catholic people, it's from the Holy See. It's his holy seat, the throne that he sits on as the leader of the Roman Catholic Church. It is in Vatican City, but it has its own diplomatic status. It has diplomatic relations with plus minus 180 countries. Why is that important? As the leader of the Roman Catholic world, in his position as the spiritual and pastoral leader of the Roman Catholics, his Holy See and his governance and his cabinet of bishops who rule over Roman Catholics of 1.2 billion, they have diplomatic relations with 180 countries. They enjoy diplomatic status. That's over and above the Vatican State itself. Right? The Vatican State has permanent observer status in the United Nations, but does not have a vote. Right? The Holy See, once again, the seat of the Pope, has connections to various organizations throughout the world. International Atomic Energy Institute, you name it. They have some degree of some type of relationship with these international institutions, whether it's monetary, whether it is satellite, whether it's technology, whether it's science, whether it's medicine, you name it, all important organizations in the world, the Holy See or the Holy Seat of the Roman Catholic Church has diplomatic or some type of relationship with these international bodies and international organizations. Moreover, when it comes to the issues of the governance of the Roman Catholic people, right, it is determined from one office. And very important to our discussion today are some of the issues that are part of the Roman Curia, right? What is important is that amongst the most active of the major curial institutions from the Holy See are the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, which oversees the Catholic Church doctrine, number one. Then you have the Congregation for the Bishops, which coordinates the appointments of bishops worldwide. Then you have the Congregation for Evangelization of Peoples, which oversees all missionary activities. And the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace, which deals with international peace and social issues. So you have basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 important organs of the Holy See. Now, if we were to translate that into Islamic parlance, you will say number one is with Aqidah and Imam. You have a Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, wherein you'll have the most, if we have the sacred territories in the control of the Muslim Ummah, and this is where my proposed future for the Muslim sacred territories comes into play. If we have, inshallah ta'ala, the Muslim Ummah has control over the sacred territories like Makkatul Mukarrama, Al-Madinatul Munawwara, and Al-Ardul Muqaddasa, then in that proposed future for the sacred territories of Islam, we could possibly have these institutions as well. Number one being Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, about Aqidah, about belief, about Iman, about Tawheed. Where in the fundamentals of Islam, you have the greatest scholars congregating there to discuss these issues of creed, to discuss these issues of Aqidah, to discuss, these are important issues. Right? The second one is a very important one as well, Congregation for Bishops. Although we don't have a monasticism, a concept of monasticism in Islam, but you need qualified leaders who will be able to go out there. And this is not for the pastor in the church. This is for people of authority, of bishops in the church, who are the appointed bishops for a certain region, for a certain country, and whatever it is there. And we need that type of spiritual as well as political leadership in the Muslim world, wherein a congregation of ulama or a tribunal of ulama will sit together and they will say, you know what, we need to have a mufti al-a'zam of a certain area. Right? And you'll have a large body of ulama who will sit together, choosing people who can take up a spiritual as well as a political and administrative role for the guidance of the Muslim ummah. Then you'll have the third one, which will be the congregation for the evangelization of people, which is da'wah. Da'wah work. Right? To send da'is out, like the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent out Sahaba kiram ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in throughout the world in a short space of time. Sahaba kiram reached China, Sahaba kiram reached Africa, they reached everywhere. What did they do? For missionary activity, for inviting people to Islam. And the next one was the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace, which deals with international peace and social issues. Now, that is the function of the Holy See, which is found in the Vatican State. But it is the function primarily of the Pope and all those bishops that are under him who are involved in the governance of the Roman Catholic people. Now, I'm just giving you one example. I come to some other examples later. Now let's come back to Makkah al-Mukarramah, Al-Madinatul Munawwara, and Al-Ardul Muqaddasa, and let us look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has appointed certain importance to particular aspects to these cities. Quran says, Inna awwala bayti wudi'a lin-nas lalladhi bi Bakkata mubaraka. Verily the first house built for people, for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is in Bakka, the old name for Makkah. Mubarakan, it is a blessed place. Wa hudan lil alamin, it is a place of guidance for humanity. Fihi ayatun bayyinatun maqamu Ibrahim. In it are very great signs like Maqam Ibrahim. And in another verse Allah says, Wa idh ja'alna al-bayta mathabatan lin-nasi wa amna. Verily we have made this bayt, this house. This is where I distinguish it from the city of Makkah. This house, this area, the sacred precincts of the Haram, mathabatan linnas, a place of congregation for people. Wa amna, and a place of amnesty and security and safety for people. Now, coming back to this issue of a proposed future for the sacred Muslim territories, let's go back to Quran and its historical background and see why this is important. Quran has given a specific aspect to the Holy Haram, mathabatan linnas wa amna, a place of safety and gathering. Mathabatan linnas. Who founded the city of Makkah? Who founded the city of Makkah? A woman and a 6-month-old baby, Sayyida Hajra and Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam. The only thing that was within the precincts of the Haram as we know it now were the ruins of the Holy Kaaba. And Ibrahim alayhi salatu came and left his wife and his baby in the precincts of the Kaaba. There was no habitation there. There were no people living in and around that area. She was the only one there. And the only time that people became attracted to that area and started some degree of habitation and people started to live in and around that area when the well of Zamzam was discovered. And the only proviso that was made by Sayyida Hajra radiallahu ta'ala anha was that, you know what, you may live around the precincts of the Holy Kaaba, but the water is for everyone. That's for everyone. Now, using the basis of the foundation of the holy city of Makkah al-Mukarramah into a place which is now habitable and has great habitation, we have to realize and accept and acknowledge this fact that the founding mother of Ummul Qura, the mother of all villages, was not a founding father but a mother. And that was Sayyida Hajra. So if we look at the significance and the social significance of Makkah al-Mukarramah, then based on its historical perspective from the Holy Quran, you've got to acknowledge the fact there that it must be a place as it originally was, as a place of refuge, particularly for women and children. And do you know, most of the world's refugees are women and children. Muslim world's refugees are women and children, and they have no place to go. When Ibrahim alayhi salam had no place to take his wife, but with the command of Allah, take her to Makkah al-Mukarramah there. Why aren't we applying that similar law in the Holy Quran to make Makkah al-Mukarramah a place of refuge for women and children? Why not? Number one, Number two, if we look at the role of Mecca and the role of the Haram of Mecca, right, where the Kaaba is housed, you will see it is different from Medina. There is no given time to my knowledge wherein Makkatul Mukarramah operated as the capital city of the Muslim world. Very interesting point. Why? The Holy Prophet conquered Mecca, but he didn't turn Mecca into the political capital of the Muslim world. He retained and he maintained Al-Madinatul Munawwara as the political capital of the world, and he ensured that Makkatul Mukarramah retains its spiritual status as the spiritual capital of the Muslim world. Very important point. Why? Because he did not want to mix politics and political issues with the sacredness and the sanctity of Makkatul Mukarramah and the spiritual territories around Makkatul Mukarramah, which is Mina and Arafah and so on, and Muzdalifah and whatever it is there. Very important point that he put across. And the Khulafa'i Rashidun continued with this tradition of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the era of Siddiq Akbar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Usman Ghani radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And because of descent and political descent, Hazrat Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu had no choice but to make a political decision to move the capital city of Islam from Al-Madinatul Munawwara to Kufa. But until then, Medina was the political and administrative capital of the world. And realistically speaking, it still is. It still is. If you were to ask me if Hijaz, where Mecca and Al-Madinah are to be found, if Hijaz were to be the so-called Vatican of the Muslim world, then if the whole Hijaz